Oh, what a night. Oh, what a Super Bowl. We will get to every aspect of this insane game from last night. Evan and Tiki on this beautiful Monday. But I think me and Tiki can argue a little bit. I think we're going to fight a little bit because I respect you. I respect everything you've done in your NFL career and as an expert broadcaster. But you and a lot of people around this country are dead wrong about Kyle Shanahan. He damn effed up. He damn screwed up in overtime. For the first time ever, we had the new overtime rules. And you, like everybody else, is saying, well, you know, get the ball first. If I score and they score, and we both score touchdowns or we both kick field goals, I want the extra possession. That's what Kyle said after the game. See, he's not thinking about this the right way, and nor are you. So first of all, how you doing, pal?
I'm doing fantastic. By the way, how many snaps did Kyle Shanahan take last night?
Oh, don't do that. He's the head coach of the football team.
How many carries did he have?
He's that. Well, not Christian McCaffrey didn't have enough. Who do you blame for that, by the way?
How many incompletions did he throw last night? Yes, that's the problem. If I'm going to blame anything on Kyle Shanahan from last night, it's that he kind of forgot that he had the offensive MVP and the rushing leader in the NFL from this past season in Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
To go the entire third quarter, basically, run 10 plays and have one carry?
I agree.
It's criminal.
I agree.
Now, the overtime rule, because that's really what this comes down to. I don't think many people understood the overtime
Neither
rule.
did Kyle Shanahan.
I think they know the overtime rule. Oh, it's not sudden death anymore. Both teams are allowed a possession. But I don't think the concept that the clock didn't matter resonated with many people, except for the eventual winners of this Super Bowl.
What a surprise.
The Kansas City Chiefs.
So you're saying the Kansas City Chiefs knew what the hell they were doing, the San Francisco 49ers did not.
But that does not affect my belief that Kyle Shanahan did the right thing by electing to take the football.
Are you open-minded?
I am open-minded, but to me, football is about a couple of things. And maybe it's more because the game has evolved and it's changed like completely from even when I was playing 17 years ago. But it's always been about protecting the football.
Yep.
Field position, and possessions.
Yes.
Most importantly, possessions.
I agree.
And so when Kyle Shanahan, in overtime, elects to take the ball, you're making an assumption. You're making the worst-case assumption. The worst-case assumption is that you go score, they go score. And then you get the chance to score again because you have one extra possession of the Kansas City Chiefs, and it's sudden death. So in a sudden death situation, you have the football, and you have the possession advantage. So I didn't mind Kyle Shanahan taking the football, and they moved the ball right down the field. They just short-circuited when they got close, and they had to rely on a field goal, and then it was on their defense. And their defense just couldn't do what most defenses can't do, which is stop Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, so you're right if this was any other circumstances in any other game against any other opponent. I'll never forget when this rule was announced a few years ago, I was under the assumption that I would be on Team Tiki. I'd be on the team of everyone out there who thinks Kyle Shanahan made the right choice, which is, hey, give me the football first because I may be able to get that extra possession. And I agree with you. There's a lot of bad things that can happen even if you give the ball to the other team. They make one mistake, like Mahomes doesn't convert on 4th and 1, you win. The Chiefs turn the ball over, you win. I get that. Here's why this is different. This is all different because Pat Mahomes exists. And I'm serious here. So here's why, because my reasoning for why Kyle Shanahan screwed up, I don't think is the reasoning you've heard anywhere else. I don't think it's the popular reasoning. But when push comes to shove, to me, it's the right reasoning. I want to make sure that I just win this freaking football game.
Yeah.
That I don't give Patrick Mahomes the opportunity to beat me. Now, you may say, but Evan, how does giving Mahomes the football first do that? I'll tell you why. I'm under the belief that if you give Pat Mahomes the football first after your defense just got dragged for the final 2 minutes of the first half and got dragged before that that I'm giving up a touchdown. I agree. I think the odds are pretty good that you're going to give the ball to Pat Mahomes and he's going to score a touchdown.
Yes.
I'm with you. Here's the difference. And Andy Reid knew this, and the Chiefs knew this. If the Kansas City Chiefs take the opening possession of overtime and do what we all think they're going to do and march down the field and score a touchdown, then I get the ball. And I have a chance to end it by scoring a touchdown and going for 2 and ending it and not giving Mahomes that third possession.
But
that's the mistake you're all making.
Okay, but isn't that worse?
Why is that worse? I have a
go
chance.
For 2 and miss it? Like, wouldn't that feel worse?
That's the right decision. It's the right decision because any other decision you make gives Mahomes a better chance to beat you. That's the point. You're talking, and we are talking about maybe the new GOAT, the baby GOAT, and you have to coach differently. And this overtime rule, it is weird. It is funky. And I'm not going to lie to you. It took me time to even get to this point. I didn't have this opinion at 10 o'clock last night. But when I thought about it more and I put my head down on my pillow and I heard what Chief players said and I heard what Niner players said, and we'll play that for you in a few minutes, I realized that this, as unorthodox as it sounds, is the most likeliest way you're going to beat Pat Mahomes. Let him score that freaking touchdown because he's going to do it anyway. Let him march down the field. You know what I mean? I don't mean let him, but he's going to. Then I get the ball back. I score a touchdown. I go for 2 and I win. And guess who doesn't get the ball again? Pat Mahomes. This game's over. This Super Bowl's over. And I win. And if you think that idea is crazy, if you're sitting in your car right now or you're sitting at work saying Evan's lost his mind, here's the proof that I didn't lose my mind. You know who had the exact same game plan? You know who admitted after the game that that's what they were going to do? The Kansas City Chiefs. They were going to give the ball to the Niners first.
If they had won the toss.
If they had won the toss, they confirmed it. And if the Niners scored a touchdown, guess what the Chiefs were going to do? And by the way, I think Kansas City doing that's a little crazy. I get it more if San Francisco does it. I think it makes sense if San Francisco does it. See, the problem with Kyle Shanahan, the reason and part of the reason why he's a loser who's blown how many big games now?
Well, he's not a loser. He's won tons of games every single year. But he's an ultimate loser.
He's a postseason loser.
Because he can't win championships.
You tell me all the head coaches that have blown double-digit leads in the Super Bowl and in the championship game, because I've seen Kyle Shanahan coach teams do it now 1, 2, 4 times in his career. But that's a part of what his thinking was flawed. His thinking was ordinary. His thinking was plain. In this new world, against Pat Mahomes, he had to think bigger. And in my opinion, he damn effed this thing up, Tiki.
Yeah, I mean, there's no other way to look at it because they end up losing the football game. But I mean, I feel like Kyle Shanahan had a philosophy, and it was to be aggressive. And he got away from it and started playing desperation OC football. What do I mean by that? I forget what fundamentals we do, which is run the football, which is make things easy for Brock Purdy. But in overtime, I think his philosophy went back to what he started with, which is let's take control. I'm not going to give or defer to the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to take control of this game. We're going to go down and we're going to score. And if we don't, I'm going to rely on our defense, which was top 3 or top 5 in the NFL this year in scoring, and stop Pat Mahomes. The problem is they couldn't do it.
They couldn't stop Pat Mahomes.
So
if
your argument is it's only because of Pat Mahomes, then our ire, if you so be the word to describe yourselves, because it's not ire for me. I think you just have to be at a resignation stage, the inevitable stage, that Pat Mahomes doesn't make mistakes in these moments.
So how do you beat him if he doesn't make mistakes, Teague? How do you beat him? I just gave you the formula. It's unorthodox, I admit that.
You got to hope that Isaiah Pacheco fumbles. You have to hope that someone runs a wrong route.
Hope is not a strategy, Teague.
I know it's not a strategy.
But what I just laid out is not hope. What I laid out was if they score on the opening possession and I get the ball, which I do based on these new rules, I have a chance to score myself and then end the game.
Yeah,
then win the game. But that's not a strategy of hope. That's a strategy of balls. And I admit it's ballsy, bro. I know that. I know it's unorthodox. But guess what? We live in a world in which we are competing. We're all competing with the most unorthodox quarterback this sport has ever seen because he's that damn good. And the only way to beat someone that's that damn good is to show massive unorthodox cojones. And Kyle Shanahan didn't do that. And what I'm laying out right now, it doesn't apply to every team. It may not apply to the Jets in a postseason game next year, dare I say it, or to the Giants in a postseason game. But when I'm staring on the other side of the field and I see Pat Mahomes, and by the way, Kyle Shanahan should have been thinking about this for hours upon weeks and days because he knew this rule existed. We all did. And he knew for the last 2 weeks he was going to have to beat the very best. And that's the way to do it. It's not hoping for a Pacheco fumble, bro. That's not a strategy.
Oh, I know it's not. But I'm just saying, if you're playing the Kansas City Chiefs, that's kind of what you got to hope for because he's not going to make mistakes. I'm just giving platitudes to Pat Mahomes. He doesn't make mistakes in moments. And whenever you need him to make a play, he makes that play. You remember the fourth down that you were talking about in overtime? It's 4th and 1.
Yeah.
And I'm watching this game, and I get asked, what should you do here? And I'm like, I don't know. You got to do something zone readish. And I got back. Do you know how many design runs have been called for Pat Mahomes this year? Design runs. Do you know how many?
I don't know.
0. That was the first one.
Are you serious?
That was the first designed run.
So every run he's had has just been off.
It's all scrambles.
Wow.
They don't do quarterback sneaks with him
That's
because
crazy.
he got hurt against the Cleveland Browns.
That's crazy.
Right? They talked about that on the broadcast. So they don't do the tush push.
Right.
They don't do any of that. One design run.
And he runs it on 4th and 1.
And it's 4th and 1. But by the way, doesn't that make sense?
Yes.
It's the most critical moment in overtime. What play you going to call? The one that you're not expecting. Now, early in the game, and this is just a setup for this run, they ran outside zone left, and Nick Bosa comes flying down the line and makes a tackle. You remember that play? It was early in the game. Nick Bosa cuts off from the backside. He's on his left side, goes all the way across, and makes the tackle. The formation was exactly the same. Exactly the same. Nick Bosa's lined up to that side. What do? They fake the handoff to Pacheco. They have Travis Kelce's leaking out to the flat, so he's got to get covered by the corner. And what does Pat Mahomes do? He pulls it and picks up whatever he picked up, 8 yards for the first down on 4th and 1. Right? So I know what you're saying, that Kyle Shanahan erred by not taking the kick or not deferring the kickoff, allowing the Kansas City Chiefs to do whatever they're going to do, whether it's kick a field goal or go score a touchdown. And then now you have control, including potentially going for 2. But the reality is there's a reason that the Kansas City Chiefs are a dynasty, officially a dynasty now, according to Sean, because he set the rules here. You got to win at least one back-to-back.
What is he, king of dynasty over there?
He is king of dynasty, but his rule
Tiki
makes
agrees.
a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You win back-to-back in 3 or 4 or whatever in a certain amount of time. They are officially a dynasty. Why are they a dynasty? Because Andy Reid is one of the best coaches in the history of the NFL.
I agree with you.
There is no doubt about it. And it's the same stuff that we talk about with Bill Belichick. Situational football.
Yeah.
Like in situations that matter in games, what do you do?
Yeah.
Do you have a plan? Do you have a process of breaking it down? And the answer was absolutely yes for every moment that mattered in this game.
All you're
for
doing,
the Kansas City Chiefs.
all you're doing,
But-
by the
but
way,
here's the thing.
is
I'm-
proving me right, Tiki, because I agree with you.
But I'm not using that as a disparager of Kyle Shanahan. I know that Kyle Shanahan has his detractors. Hell, some people are saying he's terrible. You got to get rid of him. Are you kidding me? Kyle Shanahan is one of the great play callers and play designers in the NFL.
He's also one of the great choke artists in NFL playoff history.
But okay, if you were the Jets, would you take Kyle Shanahan?
Both can be true, Tiki. Both can
I
be
agree.
true.
Would you take Kyle Shanahan?
Yes.
Right.
Because I want to get to the opportunity to choke in the Super Bowl.
Exactly.
Yes.
But Marv Levy, one of the great choke artists in the history of the NFL, right?
He hasn't blown double-digit leads the way Kyle has.
Okay, but
Though Marv has had a few.
It's all context, man. You got to watch these games and see what actually went down.
No, I'm giving you context. Has he contributed to their choking, Tiki?
Yes, of course.
So then what? Then there's context to it.
But so did bad luck with Drew Greenlaw tearing his Achilles.
I get it.
Hopping up and down, wanting to go into the football game. And now you have Odom, what the heck his name is? I forget the backup, number 48. The backup is, I forget his last name now, who can't cover.
I get
And
you.
now you got him trying to check Travis Kelce. And then you're like, oh, wait, I got to pass that guy off to a corner that's coming across the field. And now Travis Kelce's wide open on a critical moment when you're backed up on the 1 yard line.
Oren Burks.
Yes, Oren Burks. That's right. So, luck sometimes plays a part in this, but I can't sit here and disparage a guy who got to the Super Bowl for the second time in 4 years. Yes, he hasn't won one. I'm not putting him anywhere close to the pantheon of great coaches in the NFL. He is a great play caller. He has a great football mind. And he's done amazing things for the San Francisco 49ers, save win a Super Bowl. But what I can do is say Andy Reid has reached a point where, regardless of the moment, I know that he's going to have the answer.
And Tiki, I'm glad you said that because Here's why I know I'm right about this, because I wasn't right at 10 o'clock at night. I want to be perfectly honest with you. When overtime started, and I'm doing what the rest of America's doing, which is saying, what are these rules again?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they changed it a few years ago. My gut reaction was the
They
reaction
changed
you
it
had.
last year.
Yeah, 2 years ago. I think 2022.
Yes.
So, yeah, last year technically.
Right.
Whatever. I'm having the same reaction, but the more I digested it, the more I realized what you just said about Andy Reid is right. One of the reasons why Andy Reid's one of the great coaches of all time is he's prepared for every single situation, and he has his players prepared for every single situation. So here is the eureka moment I had as a football fan. I'm going to play you audio of Chris Jones of the Kansas City Chiefs last night after the game talking about what the Chiefs would have done if they had the decision in overtime, and obviously in relation to what the Niners did. Listen very carefully.
For 2 weeks, we talked about the new overtime rule and how we was going to get the ball to the opponent. If they scored, we was going for 2 at the end of the game. We kind of rehearsed it, and yeah.
So let me get this straight. The head coach that we can all agree on this Monday morning, Monday afternoon is now one of the greats of all time. Your words, he is prepared for every situation.
Right.
Your words told all of his players, hey, guys, this may sound nuts, but I want you to hear me out on this. And we're the Kansas City Chiefs. We're facing Brock Purdy. Nice player. He ain't Pat Mahomes. Hey, if we win the toss in overtime, we're going to give those sumbitches the ball. And then when we get the ball back, if a touchdown is there to tie it, no. We're going for 2 and winning it. That was the Chiefs' plan. And you know what? I'll admit it. I raised my hand. Andy Reid knows a billion times more football than me, which is why I didn't have that opinion until Chris Jones opened his mouth last night. And for me as a football fan, it was eureka. And I thought about it more. And I put my head down on the pillow, and I'm like, damn it. Not only was Andy Reid right, it actually makes even more sense for the Niners to do it than for the Chiefs to do it.
Oh, that eureka moment, Evan, is exactly why Kyle Shanahan was right.
Why?
Chris Jones just revealed the plans that wasn't answered last night. If Kyle Shanahan deferred instead of taking the ball, the Chiefs would have gotten the ball first.
Yes.
And we just heard what Chris Jones said. Andy Reid's gone through all of this. If the Chiefs go down and score, isn't it obvious what they were going to do on
You
the
think
first
they're going
possession?
for 2?
They're going for 2.
I don't know about that.
Because here's what going for 2 if you're the Chiefs does. Number 1 is this. You want the game to end and be dictated on Patrick Mahomes' terms. He knows on the other side they got Christian McCaffrey sitting there at the 2-yard line. The Niners, if they were to go back, they weren't going to hand Patrick Mahomes a short field if they match scores. They would have also went for 2. So the only way to stop that is, on my initial blow, I'm going for 2. And if and when I get that, you're screwed. Because now your 2-point conversion can only match me, and then I get a short field to kick it. So Chris Jones playing that 2-point game tells me if Kyle Shanahan deferred, they were going for 2. The Niners were never going to have an opportunity to win the game in overtime if the Chiefs got it. And then guess what we're all doing today? How does Kyle Shanahan defer when he wins the coin toss? That's exactly what the debate would be.
I don't know. You tell me, Tiki. Do you think Andy Reid, based on that logic, would have went for 2 if they had the ball first? Because I don't know if I buy that.
Probably.
You think so?
Probably.
That does change my philosophy.
Probably.
By the way, it's still now 50-50. Because my attitude may be if I stop him from getting the 2, then all I've got to do is score my touchdown, I win.
Well, here's the challenge. And again, this is an easy question to answer. Somebody's just got to ask Andy Reid, would you have gone for 2 if you had, and again, it's a hypothetical that he probably doesn't even want to play the game of because it doesn't matter. All it does is create an evaluation metric to look at Kyle Shanahan. And why does he want to disparage Kyle Shanahan? Because you know what the question is for. I think the reality of this is that Kyle Shanahan is a really good head coach. He is not ready to be on the level of Andy Reid yet. And we know it, and he doesn't have the quarterback to do it. Could Brock Purdy evolve into that? Could we get to the point in 3 years where we say, Brock Purdy, dude, this guy's like Tom Brady. This guy's like Patrick Mahomes. If he's got to go score points and with the clock running down or in overtime or whatever the situation is, it's going to happen. But he's not there right now. And so Kyle Shanahan was not playing with the same deck of cards, no pun intended, being in Las Vegas, that Andy Reid was. When you're playing with Pat Mahomes in those critical moments and you know that a defensive coordinator, Steve Wilks on the other side, is going to be so jacked up that Kyle Shanahan's going to have to call timeout to calm his ass down. Think about that. This happened in this game. Kyle Shanahan called timeout to say, Steve Wilks, you are not sending all-out pressure. Stop yourself. Calm yourself, because you're going to get beat doing that. Andy Reid didn't have to worry about those things. Andy Reid didn't have to worry about his quarterback. Andy Reid doesn't have to worry about his best player, his tight end. He doesn't have to worry about all the things that Kyle Shanahan, with a not so solidified team yet, had to worry about. So I hear you. I hear you, what you're saying. I cannot and I will not disparage Kyle Shanahan for making a decision that at the time I thought was right. Now, is it his fault for not fully understanding and not explaining to his team the overtime rule? Sure. But guess what? I didn't know that damn thing either.
You're not a head coach in the NFL, though.
But it's my job to know those things.
I know, but
I had no idea that the clock meant nothing in overtime. I had no idea. And as Tony tried to explain it, he was jumbling it, right? I didn't know what he was saying.
But Tiki, I respect that you hold yourself to a high standard as a broadcaster. You're not a head coach in the league. It's more on them to know.
No, but here's why it matters. Because if the team didn't know, you play defense differently when you think you have the clock as your ally. When the clock is not your ally, you play with a different kind of urgency. Like, we have to get a stop. It's not, let's just keep it in front of us and make sure they don't score a touchdown. The clock is going to run out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 seconds. That wasn't the case. It was, now that I look back on it, they were playing not to give up the touchdown. They weren't playing to make the stops, right? And so that's the only issue I have, is not understanding that overtime rule, which is convoluted. And for those who still think it's convoluted, here it is. In overtime, both teams are required to have a possession, and a possession can only end in 4 ways: a turnover on downs, a field goal, or a touchdown. If neither one of those things occur, the possession continues. Therefore, in overtime, in the playoffs, when the clock runs out, you just go to the next quarter, right? So I didn't understand that. Most people didn't understand it. It was a little convoluted being explained, and I definitely think the 49ers defense had no clue that was the case.
Well, we've got audio proof that one franchise that played last night had absolutely no idea what the hell was going on, and one franchise was very prepared. You can guess which one was which, and we'll get to your calls next. Obviously, very heated coming out of this Super Bowl. Team take the ball, team give the ball. Toll-free numbers 877-337-6666. We are...